Oklahoma has its own serial killer, the Butcher of Oklahoma. Today we're going to go over Jeremy Bryan Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen of all ages, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Angry Meat Production. We appreciate you coming in and letting us be a part of your lives week in and week out. We hope to do our best to present you with something that your eardrums delight in. Whether you're looking at us on YouTube or Rumble, or listening to us on Spotify, Google, or Anchor, or any of the other podcast services that we are currently on or trying to get on, we thank you. And if you don't mind, at the end of every episode, stop by, leave us a comment, leave us a like. If it asks for 5 stars, we'll take 5 stars, even if you don't like us. 5 stars are what it's all about. With that being said, we hope you enjoy our attempt to make our advocation our vocation. Ladies and gentlemen, let the games begin. Ladies and gentlemen of all ages, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Angry Meat Production. We appreciate you coming in and letting us be a part of your lives week in and week out. We hope to do our best to present you with something that your eardrums delight in. Whether you're looking at us on YouTube or Rumble, or listening to us on Spotify, Google, or Anchor, or any of the other podcast services that we are currently on or trying to get on, we thank you. And if you don't mind, at the end of every episode, stop by, leave us a comment, leave us a like. If it asks for 5 stars, we'll take 5 stars, even if you don't like us. 5 stars are what it's all about. With that being said, we hope you enjoy our attempt to make our advocation our vocation. Ladies and gentlemen, let the games begin. We here at Angry Meat Production want to thank our sponsor, Mobile Notary Mindy. She's certified with the National Notary Association. She's also bonded and E&O insured. She offers a wide range of services, including wills, powers of attorney, medical documents, healthcare proxies, living wills, certification of trust, assignment of personal property, HIPAA waivers, advanced healthcare directives, and 99 verification. You can find her on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at Mobile Notary Mindy. You can also visit her webpage at TexasMobileNotaryMindy.com. That's TXMobileNotaryMindy.com. Thank you so much and enjoy the show.
Welcome, Angry Faithful. That's right. We're going to go over Jeremy Bryan Jones, the Butcher of Oklahoma. Anyways, let's begin. Jeremy Bryan Jones was born April 12th, 1937 in Miami, Oklahoma. Yeah, that's right. Oklahoma has a Miami. The elder two boys in the late 1970s. Jones' parents divorced and his mother remarried, but the family was nevertheless considered a stable one. Due to the stepfather working as a carpenter, the Joneses were considered relatively well off. In contrast to this, however, Jeremy himself showed signs of antisocial and aggravated behavior from an early age. Due to this, his neighbors avoided interacting with him. He also did not care about academic achievements, and he was frequently disciplined for his truancy and low grades. Truancy is he didn't show up for school. In late 1980s, he developed an addiction to alcohol and began using drugs. By the end of 1989, he was expelled from Miami High School. He briefly attended Quapaw High School in the nearby Quapaw. I wonder if is that Quapaw? Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I do this a lot. If you are a regular here, you know.
Quapaw.
Yeah, Quapaw. But as he preferred to spend his times on the street, Jones was eventually expelled in 1991, shortly before the end of his 12th grade. His actions got him into a conflict with his family members. In January 1990, Jones was arrested for assaulting a boy during this incident. His own mother attempted to protect the victim, but was herself beaten as well. He was then charged with 2 counts of assault, but they were eventually dropped after the victims recoiled. Utilizing his charisma, Jones was considered popular among the young women in the town, with whom he often had sex. In the early 1992s, Jones left Miami, Oklahoma, not Florida, just a little bringing it back there. With one of his girlfriends, he moved to Baxter Spring, Kansas, where he lived with his high school friend named Justin Jude. As he had no formal education, he resorted to working in low-skilled laborers jobs, causing him and his girlfriend to experience financial hardship. The pair frequently argued, during which Jones physically assaulted his girlfriend. Jude frequently called the police, but in no case was initiated because the girlfriend refused to file charges. On May 9th, Justin Jude married his girlfriend Jennifer, who he had known since high school. 2 days after the wedding, an intruder broke into the home while Justin was away, bound Jennifer, and proceeded to stab her multiple times. During the investigation, Jones was named as the suspect based on testimony from Justin, who claimed that was interested in her. Jones insisted that he was innocent, and since there was no credible evidence to charge him with, he was released. After the murder of Jennifer Jude, Jones broke up with his girlfriend and left Baxter Springs and began to live with a criminal lifestyle. During this period, he changed several places of residence, earning a living as a day laborer and occasionally committing petty thefts. On November 5th, 1995, Jones was arrested for rape, but also was released after posting bail and fled. Between November 1995 and January 1996, he committed 2 additional crimes. On January 10th, 1996, he was arrested in Oklahoma on the charges of rape and unlawful possession of methamphetamine, the Nazi drug. We'll just call it that. During the investigation, police were contacted by a woman who claimed that Jones had assaulted her at gunpoint. He was subsequently convicted of drugs possession charges and sentenced 2 years in prison, which he served in Dick Connor Correctional Center in Harmony. He was granted parole and released in early 1997, but was soon taken into custody over the rapes. During his trial, Jones had the advice of his attorney, agreed to plead guilty on 3 counts of assault and sexual harassment, but his victims refused to appear in court, due to which their testimony was considered questionable. On March 3rd, 1997, Jones was placed on probation for 5 years and released from the courthouse. However, he was diagnosed with mental impairment, and he was placed in psychological registration, ordered to see a psychologist regularly and give DNA samples. Jones refused to comply with court orders and continued to commit crimes. In 2000, he became suspect in 2 additional rapes, due to which his probation was revoked and a warrant was issued for his arrest. Upon learning of this, Jones left Oklahoma and moved to Joplin, Missouri, where he met a woman at a bar whose son, John Paul Chapman, was serving a sentence at a state prison. With his charisma, Jones won her affection and sympathy and moved in with her. Sometime afterwards, he persuaded the woman to sell her son's papers and Social Security card for $50. Jeez, that's how much? $50 for a Social Security card? And I'm guessing the son's papers were birth certificates and which stuff like that. After which he stole the man's identity and left the state. Oh, he bought it for $50. Okay. Which he stole the man's identity and left left the state in December 2000. Why would you steal a prisoner's information? Because as soon as they figured it out, you would be considered an escapee. That's really weird. Anyways, under the name of Chapman, Jones moves to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where he lived for 2 years before financial difficulties caused him to move to Georgia. On May 1st, 2003, he was at a Raspin restaurant and lounge bar in Douglasville, where he met Vicky Freeman, who was 13 years older than him, and the two soon became roommates, frequently changing places of residence and jobs over the next few years. On October 2003, Jones was arrested for disorderly conduct and then taken to the police station, where his fingertips were run through IAFIS, Integrated Automation Fingerprint Identification System, which is a computerized system maintained by the FBI since 1999, is a national automated fingerprint identification system and criminal history system. However, due to a glitch in the system, his identity was not revealed, and when his fingerprints were entered the second time, he was falsely identified as John Paul Chapman. After paying the administrative fines, Jones was released and left Georgia to seek work, spending several weeks in New Orleans, Louisiana. In late January 2004, he returned to Georgia, where he soon was arrested in Atlanta for trespassing. He pleaded guilty, and his sentence was 3 months imprisonment in the county jail, and released March 2004. Soon after his release, Jones reunited with Freeman and found work as a day laborer, but was rearrested for drug possession in June of that year. Again, pleaded guilty, and due to the court's leniency, he was given another 3 months in the county jail. Upon release in early September, he left Georgia and headed for Alabama, where he was a desperate need to repair a building. He was there as a desperate need to repair a building in cities across the state, which was recently hit by Hurricane Ivan. Now, on the murder of Lisa Nicole on September 15, 2004, Jones arrived in Turnerville, a small community near Sanasuma, where he'd been hired to do some construction or renovation work for Mark and Kim Bentley. Still impersonating Chapman, he informed Mark that he was looking for work and housing. Upon Bentley's offer that he could stay in their trailer with his cousin Scooter Coleman, shortly afterwards, the Bentleys and their child left to visit some friends in Chickasaw. Early the next day, Jones phoned Kim Bentley and said that he needed some batteries and a radio. And Bentley informed him that he could find them in a bedroom closet. However, she demanded that he work with Coleman to find such items, as she did not trust him. Good on you for not trusting him. According to Coleman's later testimony, Jones found a .25 caliber handgun while searching the closet shelves, which he apprehended for himself, the guise to protect himself from looters who were stealing from vacant housings during the hurricane. Later that evening, the Bentleys returned home. On the day afterwards, everyone started doing repairs in the backyard. Then they suddenly visited by a 43-year-old Lisa Marie Nichols, neighbor who had recently returned to Turnerville after waiting out for the Hurricane Ivan to pass. Jones overheard from a conversation she had with one of the Bentleys that she was single and living alone. That same evening, he went over to the home of another neighbor, Chris Hill. Upon the two men drinking alcohol and consuming drugs for several hours on September 17th, everyone was doing repairs in the backyard again. But by the evening, Kim Bentley left her husband and Jones a package containing several cans of Bud Light beer. and left the home with her children. At the same time, Coleman also left to visit a friend named Joel Tough Edge. A couple of hours later, Mark Bentley finished the repairs, after which the former left to go to a fast food restaurant. The nearest open restaurant at the time was Hardee's in Clarity. About 30 minutes drive from Bentley's home, according for the Q. It took Bentley 2 hours to get there. After the other occupants had left, Jones took the handgun and a package of Bud Light beers and went to Nicole's house. He broke in, raped her at gunpoint, and not only shot her 3 times with the handgun. In the attempt to destroy the evidence, he returned to Bentley's house and took a gas canister in which he brought back with him. Jones then placed her corpse into the bathroom tub, doused her with the gasoline, and set it on fire. He returned to the Bentley house and changed his clothes, took a shower, and waited for the others to return. Later that evening, Mark Bentley heard noises through the open window and smelled gasoline. While looking out in the yard, he found Jones with 4 cans of gasoline. Upon noticing this, Jones asked if he could use them to fuel up his car for the overnight drive around town. Bentley refused, as he was growing suspicious of him, after which both men went to bed. On the following day, Nicole's neighbors, Jennifer Murphy and Amber Nichols, as well as her son-in-law, Thomas McCurkey, arrived in Turner found, informing Kim that Lisa had failed to show up for work and was not answering her phone calls. As there was still no electricity in the house, McCurkey started searching around with a flashlight and discovered Nicole's charred remains. Krejci and Nicole's daughter went to the Bentleys and told them to call the police, while Merchitsy. Sorry, folks. It's one of those days. McCurkey. Mark Bentley and neighbor Scott Colmeno. Is it Colmeno? Colomino. Continued to inspect the house to understand what had happened during this time. They answered that Jones was acting weirdly, expressing no emotion upon hearing the body had been discovered, and refusing to cooperate with the Mobile County Sheriff's Department during the interview. On the morning of September 19th, Jones fled Turnerville. While officers were investigating the house, they found that the 25 caliber bullets lodged in the wall. When questioned, Bentley admitted that he had a gun and gave it to the police. Investigators determined that the smell of gunpowder, soot residue, and bullet casings that the gun had been fired recently, and was sent for an examination. It was revealed that it had been the murder weapon. The Bentley and Coleman were brought in for questioning, with Coleman claiming that the gun had been stolen from the man he knew as Chapman. The searching the rooms led to the discovery of an empty Bud Light beer can with the fingerprints on it that the investigators believed to be used as for the killer. After Kim Bentley told police that Chapman and her husband had been drinking Bud Light on the day of the murder, Chapman was introduced as the suspect and sought for questioning. He was arrested in the early morning hours of September 21st, 2004 in Mobile. While searching for him, the Mobile County Sheriff's Department relayed that their known information to the neighborhood states. After which the Missouri Attorney General office notified them that their suspect had been the same birth date and security number as someone serving time at a prison in their jurisdiction. Sheriffs went on to interview the real John Paul Chapman, and afterwards his mother revealed that she had sold her son's identity to a man named Jeremy Bryan Jones. After learning this, they obtained the fingerprint samples from Miami Police Department, Oklahoma, Miami, dating from Jones's 1990 arrest, and conclusively established that they were his true identity. Jones initially insisted that he was innocent, but after forensics test confirmed that Lisa Nicole was killed with Bentley's handgun, and his fingerprints were on the beer can. He admitted his claims and admitted responsibility. He then claimed that he did this while under the influence of methamphetamines, or Nazi drugs, but went on to charge the testimony several more times. In his initial statements, Jones claims that on the day of the murder, he and Nicole's home, that he had shared meth before having sex. According to him, at some point, Nicole's complaining of chest pains, began suffering from cramps, and died in the bedroom shortly after. Jones assessed that he was stressed out from the death and caused him to shoot her 3 times in the head and set her body on fire. That was his excuse? Wow. Meth had come up with like really weird stories. That's all I gotta say. Anyways, on November 4th, Jones changed his story again, this time claiming that he had broken into the house and attempted sexual assault her at gunpoint, but was unable to sustain an erection. Because of this, he instead threw a towel over Nicole's head and shot her. In early January 2005, he changed his story yet again, this time claiming that he killed her accidentally. In this version, he claims that Nicole's had tried to flee and fought him, causing him to threaten to shoot her in an attempt to calm her down. However, he accidentally discharged the gun and killed her, causing him to panic and set her on fire. You know, honestly, I don't think he knew what happened on that day because he was all methed up. But anyways, I digress. At around this time, Jones made several phone calls while in the county jail, calling his mother, his friends, acquaintances, and his roommate, Vicky Friedman. After locating all these individuals, investigators questioned them all in order to obtain information about Jones. In the interview with police, Friedman unexpectedly stated her belief that Jones was responsible for the murder of a 16-year-old Amanda Greenwell, a next door neighbor of theirs while they were living together in Douglasville, Georgia. Amanda Ann Greenwell at that time was missing since 2000. Went missing on March 12, 2004, and her body was found in March 21st, and she had been strangled and stabbed several times with a knife. Her father, Rick, could not recall Jones, but did recall Friedman, stating that he had talked with her on several occasions. Jones did not admit his involvement in Greenwell's murder, but unexpectedly confessed to committing 20 additional murders across 5 states over a 12-year period. In 8 of these cases, he was unable to recall the names of his victims and were exactly where he dumped their bodies, claiming that 5 of them were prostitutes from Atlanta and the remaining were also prostitutes from Mobile, Alabama, whose bodies had been dumped in the swamps. And regardless to the remains of the murders, he recounted details only known to investigators. Once these confessed murders had been, one of these confessed murders was that of Jennifer Judd, his high school girlfriend's friend's wife, whose murder had been who he had been suspected of committing back in early 1992. According to Jones' testimony on February 21st, 1996, Delaware County, Oklahoma. Man, they're different states have same names of same places. Sorry. Brain glitch. He broke into the trailer of a 38-year-old Daniel Danny Oakley, where he assaulted him and his roommate, 41-year-old Doris Harrison. In the attack, Jones robbed and During the attack, Jones robbed and shot them to death, then set their trailer on fire. In the follow-up investigation, local residents Danny Ray Hunchicott
Honeycutt.
Honeycutt was arrested in Miami, Oklahoma, as he was found to be driving Oakley's vehicle. When examining the car, investigators found fingerprints that belonged to the murdered couple, Hutchins and some of the unknown individual. Hutchins insisted that he was innocent and provided an alibi. It was eventually confirmed that he was ruled out as a suspect, but he was imprisoned on judge charges nonetheless. After Jones's confession, the Miami Police Department, Oklahoma Miami Police Department, reopened the investigation in an effort to prove his culpability. He was a culprit in the murders. Culprit in the murders. Examining the fingerprints found in Oakley's car. However, they were not. I'm sorry. As soon as I start talking and doing these podcasts and everything, most of the time I get gassy, and I even take gas medicine. So I'm sorry if you keep on hearing burps and whatnot. However, they were not a match to Jones. Honeycutt was interviewed again, but refused to cooperate with authorities and died in 2006. In the early September 1999, according to Jones's claims, he met 19-year-old Justin D. Hutchcliffe in Pitcher, supposedly to buy drugs from him. On September 11th, after the pair drank a huge quantity of alcohol at a local bar, he claimed that it initially injected Hutchins with excessive amounts of methamphetamine mixed with an unspecified chemical. Hutchins died shortly after from an overdose. The Freeman murders on December 29th, 1999, Jones, according to investigators, committed a quadruple murder in Welch. Which Welch is this? It's still in Oklahoma. Welch, Oklahoma. They just took all the names from everywhere else just to have names from everywhere else, I guess. Of course, Texas does it too. We have a London. We have a Paris. I think we have a Miami too. Anyways, he admitted to entering the home of 40-year-old Danny Freeman, who he lived with his wife Katie and their daughters, 16-year-old Ashley Freeman, and were currently being visited by her friend, 16-year-old Laura Bible, to celebrate Ashley's birthday party. Jones claimed that after he entered the house, he shot the spouses in the head at close range, set fire to the house, and then forced the teenager into his car at gunpoint. He then supposedly drove them into a forested area near the border of Kansas, where he ended up raping and shooting them, then dumping their bodies in an abandoned mine. When asked for the motive, he claimed that he was acquaintances with Danny Freeman and wanted to kill him because the former had not paid him for the time for a meth deal. Jones described in detail the layout of Freeman's house, including the exact locations of the mailbox. During his interrogation, he had indicated on a map the location of the mine where he dumped Ashley Freeman and Bible's remains, but their bodies were never found, and the case was in doubt. This case doubt on his testimony. Investigators did not rule out the possibility that he may have learned details of this case by watching television, as the story of these two missing girls was on an episode of America's Most Wanted. A number of relatives of the victims also questioned the veracity of his administration. Jones also confessed in the murders of Tina Mayberry, a 38-year-old who was attacked after leaving a Halloween party on October 31st, 2002. At the bar in Douglasville, Georgia, he claimed that he met the woman in the bar and she was dressed as Betty Boop. After he managed to convince her to leaving the bar, he then assaulted her, then stabbed her several times in the chest and stomach, leaving her bleeding from her wounds. Mayberry went back to the bar where customers called the police. She was taken to the hospital and she died from blood loss at the hospital. Police were unable to locate any witnesses and identify the killer, as Mayberry was unable to provide a description of her assailant before scrambling from her, succumbing to her injuries. After Jones's arrest, the bar owner and staff identified him as a regular customer and established that at the time of Mayberry's murder. Jones also claimed that in the early January 2004, he met 46-year-old prostitute Catherine Collins in New Orleans, Louisiana, after which he raped her, stabbed, and bludgeoned her to death with a tire iron. Collins was reported missing on January 10th, but her body was found on February 14th on a lawn about a block away from Port of New Orleans. She had remained unidentified until after Jones's arrest. Biological traces belonging to the suspect perpetrator were found on her body, and the DNA samples from Jones have been taken to check the involvement in the crime. Jones' penultimate victim occurred to him was, according to him, penultimate victim, according to him, was 38-year-old Practice Enduras, who was murdered on April 15th, 2004 in Cummings, Georgia. The woman of the owner of a small beauty salon called Timber Trim in Tran, and disappeared in the morning of April 15th. One of her clients showed up at the salon at 12 p.m. and found the salon empty. After Honduras failed to show up and did not return her phone calls, the customer called the police. In a subsequent search, police officers found her purse, personal items, and food in the microwave and her car, in which the parking lot next to the salon, without any signs of forced entry. When questioned, Jones stated that he entered Andrea's salon to ask directions. While talking to her, he learned that she was all alone, after which he threatened her with a knife and forced her to give him money from the cash register, leaving the building and to get into the car. In support of his words, Jones drew on paper a plan of the location of the door, windows, and salon building, as well as the location of the street where the parking lot and car were located. Jones claimed that he drove the woman into the woods about 65 miles from the abducted site, where he raped her and stabbed her to death. He insisted that he had dumped Honduras' body into a creek and drew a map for investigators, but the body was never found, and his confession was credibly questioned. In the end, despite many confessions, Jones was charged with only 3 murders. In late 2004, he was charged with the murders of Nichols and Greenwell, and in late January 2005, with the murder of the Collins. High-ranking police officers from 3 states organized a meeting and formed a plan to prosecute Jones, where it was decided that he would be extradited to Alabama first, then to Louisiana, then to Georgia for the respective cases. Now, for the trial. Jones's trial was scheduled to begin on August 15th, 2005, but was postponed due to a motion by his attorney that requested undergo mental evaluations first. The examination concluded that although he had mental impairments, he was nonetheless sane and able to stand trial. Shortly before the trial began, representatives of the FBI issued a formal apology to the relatives of Nichols and other former potential victims for the glitch that allowed for his release. Okay. Side note on this. I'm actually glad that they did this because it was a glitch and he would have been stopped in 1999. That it sucks, but I'm glad they apologized for it and to the family members. That given their track record here lately, I'm actually glad for that. The trial officially begun on October 19th and lasted 1 week. The main evidence with the prosecution was Jones's confession, the fingerprints found on the beer can, and testimony that shooter Coleman, the handgun, and the DNA results as determining the bloodstains found in Jones's cloth belonged to Lisa Nicole. At said trial, Jones recounted all his confessions, was nonetheless found guilty by the jury verdict for the murdering Nicole's. Mobile County prosecutors also sought the death penalty, while the attorney sought life without parole because he was intoxicated and mentally impaired at the time of the murder. Courts found that the mitigating factors was insignificant. And on December 1st, 2005, Jones was sentenced to death. After the conviction, charges were dropped in Greenwell and Collins' case due to the lack of evidence to secure a conviction. During his imprisonment and credibility of his confessions, after his confessions, Jones transferred to Holman County's facility in Ardmore, Oklahoma, where he remains on the state's death row. In late 2000, his attorney filed an appeal to overturn his death sentence, with the motion succeeding in doing so in 2010. He was later resentenced to death, and as of May 2023, he remains incarcerated on death row. Jones's culpability in other murders since his conviction has been questionable and challenged by many. Jones himself has insisted that he is solely responsible for Nicole's murder, and he had made false confessions so that he would be provided with better conditions at a county jail. His attorney, Habib Yansandi, I can't believe I said that name right, supported these claims, arguing that his clients had taken advantage of the media attention and prejudiced himself in order to obtain privileges such as more or longer phone calls, as well as better food. There's another guy, and I'll get to who did the same thing. He was described as a skillful manipulator with a high enough IQ that under different circumstances he would benefit him greatly in various walks of life. Vicky Friedman gives Jones an alibi for at least two of the murders. She claims that he was with her in Douglasville the night Catherine Collins was murdered in New Orleans, and that he was working near Douglasville when Patris and Duras vanished. The latter bodies were found in December 2005 behind a Baptist church 10 miles from where she was abducted, casting further doubt on Jones's confession. His guilt in the Collins case was considered questionable, as he unable to provide any specific details, and the graphic data did not correlate. Sorry. As a result of the DNA test, and it showed discreditabilizes between Jones's and the genotype of that of the killer. Jones also recounts his statements in regards to the Freeman murders, with doubts remaining about his involvement for over 15 years. As for exaggeration, when Tommy Lee Sells, another murderer who claims to be a serial killer, also confessed to the same crimes that Jones supposedly committed, Jones was officially ruled out as a suspect in 2018. When 6-year-old Ronnie D. Bolswick was arrested, he, along with Warren Welch and David Pennington, who were deceased, were determined to be the true perpetrators. Now, in media, he was also a subject on episodes of Unsolved Mysteries that was produced on Netflix in 2020. And these series discussed the questions of Jones' guilt in most of the murders he confessed to. Now, I've already gone over one person that actually did stuff like this to get better accommodations and everything. Let me make sure this is the guy. Yeah. It was Henry Lee Lucas, who was confessed to approximately 600 other murders to the Texas Rangers, who eventually died. in 2001. But yeah, he did the same thing, and I went over a lot of the times with other podcast people of what he did. I mean, Henry Lee Lucas, and I did this on our podcast too. He literally just wanted to do it for the free burgers and milkshakes, or the burgers and milkshakes, what they gave him to confess, and they were just using him, and he would confess to all the crimes, and that was also why I wanted to talk to like people like Eric Tansey and BC Sanders, Failure Stop podcast, and BC and Disruptor podcast. And I wanted to talk to them because they're actually part of the police department. One was a detective. BC Sanders was a lieutenant in the police force, and Eric Tansey was a patrolman in the police force in North Carolina. But yeah, that I went over how they go over the cases and everything, and what's basically done with the cases, and they're surprised that the Rangers did that, and a lot of other law enforcement try not to do that. But sometimes you want to have. I guess the whole reason why you would do something like that, and it is unethical to do that. But it's to give relief to the family members, more or less. That's the only reason why to do that, because that's all you're doing. You're giving relief that they found somebody that killed their family members. But I digress, and thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Check us out on all platforms. Like us, comment. Please just comment and like our videos. And the reason why I say that, and I want this to become a little bit bigger and get a bigger audience and whatnot. Do I want this to succeed? Yes. Am I going to stop doing it if I don't? No. I'm going to keep on doing this until I'm going to be willing myself to this mic and half drooling when I'm actually doing this podcast. I don't care. I love doing this. I love the reactions I get, and hopefully the person that actually listens to one of a podcast, he gave us a lot of comments, and they were not flattering for the case that I was looking into, and I was just looking at the news articles of the case because he hadn't been convicted. That's the reason why I like to do fully convicted criminals, because you get more information on that person. I want to do the one that it's who is this guy? Ruel Mendez Jr. I want to do him sometime soon, but his case isn't done. He's a serial killer in Austin. A person from the sheriff's department here in town that's a friend of mine. We were talking about it while I was going to the movies because he does security work for the theater. And he told me about the serial killer, and I looked at the evidence at that time through the newspapers, and everybody was saying at that area that there wasn't a serial killer. And it was obvious that they had a serial killer, but they didn't. Times like that, when you actually don't want the media and everything, you want to gather evidence because they didn't have the perpetrator at the time. But they do now, and it's going through the process. And hopefully he gets convicted. Last time I saw that, he might actually be let go. But anyways, everybody, love you. Thank you all for listening. I mean, anybody that comments and everything, listens to the full extent of these videos or on Spotify, thank you for doing that. It does mean a lot. Now, goodbye.